Good afternoon, everyone. Anyone in Pacific time zone here? Yeah, good morning. All right, let's get started. I'm Dmitri Zimine. I'll be talking about automation, about networking, and before we go, and you guys are settled up, I have two confessions to make. How do I click here? So, first, I don't network, meaning we'll hang out and we talk, but if you ask me networking questions, I cannot answer them because I'm not a networking engineer. So, I built the automation software, and I spent the last 3 years building StackStorm, the automation platform, and working out in the field with users, with cloud providers, service providers, enterprises on their journey to Agile and to DevOps, to automation. And now that StackStorm is acquired by Brocade, I run automation integration team there at Brocade. The next confession I need to make is the abstract for application. I actually did not write it. Someone very nice wrote that for me, taking some of our marketing documentation. I look at that and like, what is this? I can actually talk to this. I mean, Agile is used there 7 times. This talk is written for Hillary. I need to write that, but on a second thought, that's actually another marketing from Brocade, pretty good one. They have this, on the second thought, set of cartoons. Some of them pretty good. Get this. So on the second thought, I think, you know what? I'll pick up the challenge. I'll just use this and pick up these buzzwords and take an opportunity and have some fun here. Like, and we're a small team here, so we can actually have fun. And we'll play the buzzword bingo. BS here obviously stands for Barcelona Special. And I can walk through these buzzwords and tell you how I read that, what I think is behind these buzzwords for me, and use that as a loose agenda to kind of work on network automation. And here's bingo 1, network automation. So what is this? So network automation is a bit of the red herring. Why so? When I talk to networking people and say, what are you going to automate? They, like 9 out of 10 times they say, we automate networks. Like, let's get it clear, what do we automate? We don't automate nouns, we automate verbs. We do not automate the network, we automate the processes, the workflows around networking. And the workflow is the set of tasks that are strung together to achieve some meaningful business objective. And business gets us to another problem with network automation. Using this word just makes it think like we automate a network. But network by itself has no business value. And we in networking typically have a very narrow viewpoint to the automation. Automation, however, doesn't begin network and doesn't end at the network. Typically, it starts with deploying the service, running an application, doing something. And network is a part of this, often an important part, but just part of that. And once this is done, you sometimes validate that everything goes right. And if it is not, you troubleshoot, you alert, and this part of the workflow also lives outside of the domain area of the network. Now, why talking about network? Well, mainly because network is behind on another buzzword, digital transformation. What is digital transformation then? To me, this is pretty much replacing meetings with API calls. Remember, we were so liberated when VMware came aboard, and we don't need to wait for a few weeks for the service provision. You can just meet with the VMware administrator and talk to him, and he will provide you a virtual machine with a few clicks on the UI. Guess what? No good anymore. Now you actually want that as an API call. And most of the transformation had been happening, and this is why OpenStack is so superior to VMware. It's not because OpenStack has better versions. It is because it's more appealing to developers. It's more appealing to automation. You can provision a machine there with API calls without talking to anyone. Now, why are we talking about network here? Because network is a mess. It remains a mess. With SDN, that's getting better, but when it comes to networking infrastructure, the networking devices has archaic API, like XML, 2016, right? We still use XML there. Some of them don't have any API whatsoever and only speak CLI. Network industry gets that. And the new generation of devices are coming with pretty decent APIs. But the APIs, this hardly automatable network is still being shipped, still being sold, and they'll remain fact of life for the next 3, 5, 6 years. And we'll need to deal with this mess. Now, some naive of us think, well, it's only a matter of a few years when we'll get rid of a legacy completely. Now, get what? It's not going to happen. They'll always be old. It's just a matter of life. And 6 years from now, there'll be something else old. And it is not an excuse not to do the automation. It's just deal with this. Now, and it's not just networking. Storage, same story. Vendors, old APIs. Legacy applications, we were just talking about COBOL, and there are some, like vendor that I know that's still translating the Fortran from mainframes. Proprietary application, we have people tools. So it's quite a variety of the tools that are in the same category. You heard Jenny's talk this morning. People are dealing with this. What are the typical way to deal with this? Well, this is to implement the API shim layer. Target, they just quoted the target. That's what they did. They created the REST API on top of this. BlackBerry, RIM. Can you believe they're still alive and they're actually running pretty decent infrastructure? And on this infrastructure, have a lot of legacy applications. Same story there. Recently talked with one of the too big to fail banks, and they created the REST API on the top of their infrastructure to unify the APIs. So, however, this won't be enough to completely automate. Because what we also need to do is to do the cross-domain integration. And what is this cross-domain integration? You have a number of silos. And now all of them have the API. And it is still not automated. I'd been at VMware at the time when we decided to add usability to cluster provisioning. So we went out and did the contextual inquiries by the book. Some of you know, like you fly to the customers, you spoke to hundreds of them, you create like how different set of customers, different personas actually using the software. How do they do? How do they deploy the VMware cluster? And we built the diagram, the workflow that describes the creation of the cluster and literally looks like this. I mean, took the whole world. And there is wire the services, get the network diagram, obtain the set of IP addresses, and all these things, and there is wait and wait and wait, and just according to this workflow foundation, 90%, most of the time, was in between all the generally automatable steps. This is like actually where the meeting time is happening. That is why the cross-domain integration is needed. It is, to make it sufficient, there is some type of the workflow needs to stitch this all together in a way that's better than just a bunch of scripts. And when this happens, you comprise that. Again, nice work from our marketing. You comprise the time. When we come to solution, let's sum it up. What do we need? As we say, like we need to have the united API that gets all the domain talk to the same each other and needs to be both inbound events and ongoing. We need some data flow. That means that the data needs to go past from one domain to another. The results of the calls from one domain go to another and being transformed there. The transformation is often necessary because the structures are different, type are different. You know, IP might be just a string. It might be a number, 4 numbers. Even the names are different. You know, the keys, host, maybe the host in one system, host name in another, node in yet another, service in another. So some rationalization of the data needs to happen here. And finally, the logic, the workflow that stitches this all together in some way that is transparent and reliable. And if this and that things, and it's like to connect events with the workflows, like if this happens, kind of run this workflow. And quick welcome to StackStorm, the event-driven automation platform and its commercial sibling, Bracket Workflow Composer, that solves that level of the problems. How it works. First, we bring the API shim layer. Sensors are responsible for the inbound integration. It's a piece of the code that turns an external event. It might be a monitoring event, an alert in New Relic, or in telemetry in OpenStack. Or it might be the temperature in this room. Doesn't matter. It transforms that into the trigger inside the system. And actions. Actions is something that is doing with the system with the unified REST API, as well as CLI and UI. And they're easy to write, that's necessary, and it's quite a lot of them on the community already. And in addition to that, there is an integration layer. The rules, if this then that, when this event happens, run this workflow. And the workflow, that is the business logic that stitches all together. And on the workflows, by the show of hands, who is running OpenStack here? So you might already use that because for the workflow we use Mistral, and Mistral is OpenStack workflow service. You know, I've been contributing that from Hong Kong Summit from the very beginning, and our team is contributing to that still. So that is the holistic solution that we have on this so far. And how it works, just by example. Imagine that you have a service, you have the monitoring system, and then something goes wrong in the service. For instance, there is a low disk alert, and it comes to the monitoring system, and monitoring system transfers that to the event. Okay, automation, I'm running out of disk space. The automation then checks that against the rule. Do we have something when there is low disk space? Okay, we have that. There is some troubleshooting and remediation workflow, and it runs the workflow. The workflow goes like it is supposed to be. For instance, it checks if it is something that I can fix, the troubleshooting part, and then runs the remediation part for something that it can fix. And if everything goes wrong, or if it is just an unknown area, it wakes up the human. As you see, that life cycle, this auto-remediation life cycle, is kind of reduces the operation pattern quite a lot. So, like, I think I covered event-driven automation. I won't be talking about agility. I already have the 7 mentions of the agile on this thing. But what can be automated with this approach? Quite a lot of things can be automated. Rather than going over them, I actually will take this. We have the OpenStack Summit right now, and there is a number of interesting talks right on the summit that go into the details of what can be automated. I'm holding this slide, so guys, pull out the cameras, take the pictures, make sure that, like, especially the Mistral talk, Mirantis talk actually, is pretty interesting then. These guys are running a gigantic semantic cloud, and they're recently using StackStorm to self-heal. So we had a preview of this presentation. That's fun. Now, so what? When you implement the type of integration, what's happening? So there is a number of customer examples and justification for that. I like this one, very recent one from Fujitsu. They just begin to run Bracket Workflow Composer, a commercial version of the StackStorm on the infrastructure. And the good part about these guys is that they measure everything. So they shared with us this. There is a number of use cases, and it's a variety of use cases, not just the networking. And of all of them, they measured substantial savings in time, in agility, in the reduction of the main hours, but more importantly, in reducing the errors. So we're actually pretty proud of it.